Examining the complex psychology of INFJs, we reveal the subtle causes of their inclination to distance themselves from others. These 8 strong indicators illuminate the intricate processes at work in the INFJ's inner world, from emotional wariness to the betrayal of trust. The 8th is extreme emotional tiredness. Excessive emotional tiredness is often a silent enemy that steals their vitality and weakens their resistance. They feel exhausted and depleted as a result of the continual barrage of emotions they take in from other people. Despite their tendency toward compassion, INFJs may find themselves withdrawing into isolation in order to protect themselves from the never-ending demands of providing emotional support. Being an INFJ and having to navigate the complex web of human emotions can be a tiring task since they are easily overwhelmed by the weight of other people's emotions. INFJs risk jeopardizing their inner equilibrium by putting their own emotional health last in an effort to encourage and support those around them. INFJs may naturally retreat from social situations if the emotional load becomes too much to handle, finding comfort in the haven of isolation. For INFJs, detachment is an essential self-preservation tactic. Despite the fact that it may be misinterpreted as aloofness or disinterest, they can restore their emotional reserves and feeling of equilibrium by withdrawing into seclusion. 7th, a breach of confidence. Their relationship's fragile fabric was severely torn apart by the betrayal of trust, leaving behind long-lasting wounds that are difficult to mend. When someone's trust is broken, it affects them deeply and sets off a series of negative feelings that might range from betrayal to disappointment. Their relationships are weakened by this betrayal of confidence, which also raises questions about the sincerity and moral character of individuals engaged. Following a betrayal, INFJs could experience mixed emotions as they try to balance their natural drive to forgive others with their need to keep themselves safe. Long after the initial shock has worn off, the scars caused by betrayal remain, leaving a persistent feeling of vulnerability and mistrust. INFJs may find it difficult to balance their need for self-preservation and their desire for forgiveness. Despite their innate empathy, INFJs confront the terrible truth of betrayal head-on, searching for closure and clarity among the confusion of competing emotions as they withdraw into solitude to process their feelings. The 6th is no real relationship. The lack of actual connection is like being lost in a desert with no oasis, a desolate place without real empathy or emotional support. INFJs long for depth and authenticity, connections that speak to the core of their being in a society where surface-level interactions and relationships are the norm. But in a sea of superficiality and social conformity, people frequently find themselves alone and unable to create deep connections. INFJs seek out kindred spirits, souls whose essence resonates with their own, in order to form ties that go beyond the surface trappings of everyday interactions. This is driven by their desire for real connection. These genuine relationships act as pillars in the middle of life's upheaval, offering comfort and safety in a chaotic and uncertain environment. INFJs, on the other hand, could find themselves withdrawing into isolation and hiding in the quiet corners of their inner world if they are not met with genuine connection. They find comfort in the embrace of their own authenticity when they are alone themselves. They tend to the fires of their inner light and wait for like-minded people to share their most intimate secrets with. 5th, sense of being misinterpreted. Being misunderstood is like being lost in a huge sea of misunderstandings. It is a deep loneliness in the clamor of social norms and false beliefs. INFJs frequently experience misinterpretations of their words and behaviors, despite their sincere attempts to communicate themselves truthfully, which leaves them feeling perpetually frustrated and alienated. With every encounter, There is a gap in understanding that grows because of this mismatch between their internal reality and their outward perspective. INFJs carry a heavy burden of misinterpretation with them, which clouds all of their interactions and relationships. They want to be accepted and acknowledged for who they really are. But they frequently believe that a cloud of miscommunication hides who they really are. INFJs may experience emotions of isolation and loneliness as a result of this disconnect, since they find it difficult to reconcile their inner and outer selves. INFJs may withdraw into isolation in their search for understanding, finding comfort in the peaceful haven of their own ideas and emotions. They can reconnect with their true selves and find comfort in the midst of confusion by retreating into the seclusion of their inner world to escape the cacophony of misperception. Relationships that drain your emotions come in fourth. Managing emotionally taxing relationships is like navigating a dangerous terrain. It requires careful self-preservation and compassion balancing. Because they struggle to maintain their own emotional equilibrium while absorbing the deep emotions of others, INFJs in these partnerships frequently feel emotionally drained and exhausted. INFJs are naturally sympathetic, yet the emotional intensity of these interactions can overwhelm them, leaving them feeling tired and burned out. Relationships that are emotionally taxing can have a variety of negative effects, from physical exhaustion to mental and emotional turmoil. As they struggle to maintain equilibrium in the middle of the chaos caused by the demands of these relationships, INFJs may exhibit signs of stress and worry. INFJs may realize that, despite their best efforts, they are compromising their own well-being in order to uplift and encourage those around them. INFJs may withdraw into isolation when they are emotionally worn out, finding solace in the private haven of their own thoughts and emotions. They can refuel and replenish their emotional stores in solitude, which gives them the room they need to regain perspective and equilibrium. 3. A lack of regard for one's own bounds. It is like attempting to navigate a labyrinth maze. They are always at odds with the harsh realities of the world while trying to preserve their sincerely held principles in a world full of moral ambiguity. INFJs are motivated by a strong sense of obligation and responsibility to positively impact the world, but they frequently have to make moral concessions and ethical conundrums. For INFJs, the contrast between their idealistic conceptions and the flawed character of reality can cause a great deal of internal anguish. As individuals face the stark reality of injustice and inequality, they could struggle with feelings of disappointment and resentment. When faced with systemic oppression and societal indifference, individuals may feel helpless, even with their best attempts to bring about constructive change. INFJs may withdraw inside themselves when faced with moral ambiguity, finding comfort in the small haven of their own moral compass. They obtain the perspective and clarity they require in alone to reaffirm their dedication to their beliefs and ideals. INFJs can successfully negotiate the muddy waters of moral ambiguity by remaining true to themselves and their convictions. Despite these difficulties, they want to make a significant impact on the world. Secondly, inconsistency with principles and convictions. Dealing with values and ideas that don't align is like trying to find your way through a maze where every step you take will bring your firmly held views into conflict with society standards. INFJs are very conscious of their own moral compass, which is based on justice, empathy, and compassion. But they frequently run afoul of social conventions that put individual interests ahead of the good of the whole. INFJs may have intense feelings of alienation and frustration due to this discordance as they attempt to reconcile the differences between their internal values and the outside world. Despite their greatest attempts to follow their moral convictions, they could encounter morally challenging situations and decisions that jeopardize their integrity. INFJs who have a strong feeling of duty to change the world for the better may find this internal conflict to be especially intense. INFJs may withdraw into isolation in their search for authenticity and values congruence, finding comfort in the haven of their own moral convictions. When they are alone themselves, they can think clearly and muster the courage to stand by their convictions in the face of hardship and criticism. INFJs are able to successfully manage the intricacies of life by adhering to their ideals and making an effort to live according to their values. First on the list, finding time for introspection and rest. Examining the INFJ's inner world reveals a strong propensity to turn to isolation for rest and renewal. It's like finding a secret haven in the middle of life's craziness. For INFJs, being alone is more than just a way to get away from it all. It's a place to refuel emotionally and find perspective in the middle of life's uncertainties. INFJs rediscover themselves in the soft embrace of isolation, sorting through the complex web of ideas and feelings to obtain perspective and clarity. Far from being a sign of loneliness, solitude turns into a purposeful act of self-preservation and self-care that gives INFJs the opportunity to pursue their passions and develop their creative side. INFJs who embrace isolation as a spiritual practice discover inner peace and tranquility and come out of quiet reflection periods with a fresh sense of purpose and power. It's during these times that they learn the tenacity necessary to face life's obstacles head-on, emerging rejuvenated and prepared to take on the world once more. Examining the distinct characteristics and inclinations of INFJs illuminates their deep complexity and character depth. INFJs and others around them might develop stronger ties and a greater awareness for the complex inner world of the INFJ personality type by comprehending and embracing these characteristics.